Hi, welcome to another episode of Pitch, Connecting Storytellers with the World. I'm Leah St. Marie.
And I'm Angel.
And today we have a friend of ours on the podcast, Adam Sinclair.
Hello.
Welcome.
Adam, you're known for Rizzoli and Isles, Ecstasy, 24, the list goes on and on and on.
As an actor.
As an actor, please.
Yes.
And we have an interesting backstory. We met on set 2-3 years ago.
It's not that long ago, is it?
Yeah.
Jesus, Joni Maroney, the time is flying. Two, maybe 2.5.
2.5 years ago, because I've been to 2 of your birthdays, so at least 2.
My goodness.
Wow.
I was a young whippersnapper when you met me.
Yeah. I held up a video on YouTube of bow tie tying to help you tie that bow tie. That's when we connected.
That is correct.
This was on set.
This was on set. But I also accidentally had him come to set early because I was line producing a thing. I called him in. Do you remember this?
7 a.m. call. And I wasn't used till lunchtime after lunch.
I felt awful.
It's pretty standard. It's not like out of the ordinary for talent.
I made up for it. I got him some
Did I
alcohol.
throw a tantrum?
No, you were very lovely.
Good.
I bought you alcohol.
That's probably why I didn't throw a tantrum.
Which then we did a short film together, all three of us.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a good time.
2 dresses.
Up in Malibu, right?
Yeah. Lovely Malibu.
My bullshit
Me and
boho
you
jiu-jitsu.
in Malibu. Yeah, it was a romantic time.
Yeah, Kevin's going to have it on the website soon, actually.
Oh, great. Yeah, so for our listeners out there, check out Adam Sinclair and me in a short film directed by Leah entitled 2 Dresses.
2 dresses.
What's the quick pitch for 2 Dresses, Leah?
2 men wresling. There you go.
Two semi-handsome men. One is a Scotsman.
2 metrosexuals wrestling. And is that a thing now, metrosexuals?
Sure.
That's
Okay.
like probably 20 years ago.
Well,
Yeah. That's showing my age now.
time period piece now.
Fair
It's
enough.
2 men married to the same woman at different points in time, arguing over what dress to bury her in.
You've got to have wrestling in there.
Yeah, and then Angel becomes shirtless for some reason. I
For
don't
some
know
reason,
why.
it's like my lot
bit of
in
magic.
Leah's movies.
And it's a comp to that would be
The Matrix. No, wait, I'm misremembering. No, it was not a sci-fi.
Brokeback- No.
The Big Chill.
The Big Chill.
Big
there we
Chill.
go.
Big Chill. Kasdan. But Adam, you and I had lunch very recently in Los Feliz, and you pitched me something that I think is incredible. And you had a meeting with Vincent. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your pitching process?
Well, let me just fill you into what we were actually talking
Yes,
about.
please.
I mean, we've introduced me as an actor, and yes, that is what I'm predominantly known as. But I also own a flight school in Los Angeles, which you know about, First Take Aviation, just if anybody wants to look it up. I got into aviation about 5 years ago. Learned to fly, started a flight school.
Wow, so from learning to fly to starting a flight school is 5 years for you? I feel like that's incredibly fast.
I did it in 6 months. I got my pilot's license.
Prolific.
That is incredibly fast.
And then within the year, I started the flight school. Now, the secret to that is surrounding myself with good people. So I surround myself with a lot of good pilots. I saw a sort of little bit of injustice in the market in terms of who was getting to fly. It was a lot of rich, privileged kids whose parents own planes. My now business partner, who was my flight instructor, he came from Mexico and learned to fly. He wanted to get in aviation from a young age, and it was just hard for him. And the only route to go was military. I had a very similar experience when I was a young kid at school. I thought about getting into flying, but the only route to go was the Royal Air Force. It just wasn't a thing for me. It wasn't a road I was going to go down. And so, long story short, we started a flight school to try and bring aviation to more people and open up the world of aviation. And doing that, we realised there was an injustice. There's only 1.2% of the world's pilots are African American. That's 1.2% of the world's pilots. And 3.4% are women. The demand for pilots right now in the world of aviation, since we had COVID and we had a lot of the old guard were laid off or they took early retirement. They can't come back into aviation once they've taken early retirement, commercial-wise. And so when we came out of COVID, or at least came out of lockdown standards, aviation is coming back with a ferocity, and the demand for pilots is through the roof. And we have countries like China and India who are now superpowers, and they're exporting and importing and flying around the world. Just aviation. When we talk about the climate change problem, it's the one thing that everybody likes to sweep under the carpet because it's not going anywhere but forwards, is aviation. And so that becomes an engineering thing that will happen later on, I'm sure. but everybody's going into the air. So anyway, jump forward to this demand for pilots. Pilots, within 3 years of learning to fly, you can be flying for an airline and earning $120,000 a year.
3 years. That's
within 3 years.
That's really rapid.
From zero to hero.
But with like the right testing, and
all the right
protocols,
training,
and
all the right training.
Wow.
And to do that, you can do it for $80,000.
I mean, that's an incredible term.
And you are guaranteed, at the end of that, $120,000 a year job.
That's incredible, because when you think of the amount of money and time spent on getting a BA and then an MA and then whatever, if you become like a lawyer or a doctor or something that's equivalent in payments.
Well, wait and you hear this. So you work for the airline for 4 years when you've been working for the airline, and you fly a slim body like a 737, I think you're on $475,000 a year. And if you fly a fat body, which is a 747, you're on $564 a year. So I can't remember the exact numbers, round about there. $500,000 a year. That's more than a lawyer. That's more than a doctor.
Yep.
That's up there with surgeon money.
Yep.
So for all of our listeners out there who are writers who want a second career path, within 3 years you can be earning.
So here's the reality of it. It's life-changing money. It's family inheritance-changing money. Mm-hmm. So we saw the injustice in this gap in the market, and we decided to start a charity where we could get some kids going through flight school. And then how do we put a better spotlight on that than turning it into a TV show?
The underprivileged kids.
Mm-hmm. These underprivileged kids. So we're working with charities based in South Central LA, based with the Navajo Nation, the Women's 99 group, and we're going to these charities and not just underprivileged kids, but people of underprivileged situations or situations where they just can't break out of. Now, don't get me wrong, not everybody's going to go and become a pilot. It takes a certain type of person to get in a plane and fly it and be responsible for 200 souls behind you, right? It takes a certain person. But it doesn't take that great amount of money. It takes a bit of determination and a bit of intelligence is what it takes. And in comparison with everybody else, so we saw this show called Last Chance U, which is a show about kids getting scholarships to universities based on sport, which seems to be a very big thing for the African American community, breaking into basketball, the NFL, various sports, and that's their way of getting to university. Now, it's not even to go and become a basketball player, it's just to get to university to get a bloody education. I mean, this is ridiculous. And then to be successful in that, it's 1% of the 1% that make it successful.
It's a lottery.
And it's a lottery, and so many kids going for it.
And it's
such a small window of
opportunity. It's the most viable path, which is the injustice. Like, this is the most viable path to a higher education versus other ethnicities having, like, just the fact that the academics and the education itself is a viable path. And that's the injustice, right?
The totally injustice. Yeah. Totally injustice. And I sort of recognized that as this kid. It's very hard to sort of get into the whole race division thing here in America when you're not from here. But I'm from a working class town in Scotland, and, you know, life wasn't great growing up. Parents didn't have money. But the beautiful thing for me is the Scottish government paid for my education from start to finish, all the way through university. I went to the Royal Academy of Music and Drama, and they paid for every penny of it. Mm-hmm. That's how we treat our children. We pay for our children's education.
Across the board. Across
the board. Unless you're like earning a ridiculous amount of money. Then education is free. Yeah. Education is free for those who can't afford it.
That's not how the United States works.
It's not how the United States works. I wanted to make a dent in that here in the United States of America, and I can't do it through education system. I can't go and change the school system, but I can offer kids opportunity work beyond this. So we came up with the idea of ARC Flight Academy, or the ARC as we've called it. It's a Martin Luther King quote. The arc of justice is long, and I can't even remember the second half of it now, embarrassing myself. But the arc of justice is long, and eventually it meets. If you can look it up for me. Look it up, yeah. I actually have it on my pitch deck, which I don't have in front of me. But it's about getting kids and taking them through the program, not a reality show, but a docu-series, and showing this world of aviation. There's a whole world there. America's the home of aviation. There's airports all across America. Every 100 miles is an airport. Every 50 miles, every 25 miles is an airport. You can go across America in a tiny plane, and there's a whole world that you can tap into where there's an FBO there for you, where there's coffee always there for you, somewhere for you to go and rest. It's there. The infrastructure's there. but it's only open to a privileged few. And so my thing's about cracking open the infrastructure and showing these kids, this is here. This is a reality. Nobody's telling you about it. I don't know why they're not telling you about it, but it's here.
So if you wanted to refill your glass as well. So you have a flight school and saw a problem in the industry and saw an opportunity for underprivileged children to start a nonprofit, and you are funding these kids' schooling to become pilots so that after 3 years, they can start making a livable inheritance wage.
Better than that, within a year and a half, within the first year, in fact, within the first year, they can start working for themselves and earning $50 an hour, teaching the kids below them how to fly.
That's brilliant.
And so what we're trying to create within our charity, not necessarily for the show is a separate entity because TV money will pay for the kids to go through that. So I don't want to get the charity and the TV show mixed up.
Oh, yeah, it's
but the
two different
TV show
things.
is a spotlight for the charity.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's a spotlight for the charity. And so the charity, yes, is being funded by outside funders, or we're going to foundations. The Gerin Foundation is going to be funding some of it. And yeah, it's just creating opportunity. And it's a very weird thing because we're giving these kids money to go and study to become pilots, and we'll pay for that. But they've also got to live. And they've got to fund the first year and a half themselves, whatever it is they do. So I don't know what their job is or what their family situation is. And, we'll help with that and be advice for that as much as we can as human beings. Mm-hmm. But that's something they need to work out and figure out. But we will get them there if they've got the determination. And it's a bit of work. It's an overload of information. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But it is just based on numbers. It's not based on zeitgeist. It's not based on your background. It's not based on the color of your skin, although it seems to be that way. And that's what I'm trying to change because there is inequity in there. But it's this whole thing needs to be cracked wide open. And I think and here's the other thing: it's not just aviation business; it's been a closed shop. So this is just the start of it. And I'm not saying I'm going to venture into other things, but this is the start of making kids from certain situations look in, scratch the surface. What is below it? What is out there? What can you get into?
Right. And so you're going around, you have two different ways that you have to pitch yourself then. You have the nonprofit side where you're going to all of these organizations to tell you about what it is that you're doing. And then you have the docu-series, so it's a TV side of things that you're going around town and you're finding people to pitch this to.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about either one of those in the process of pitching?
The pitching, sorry?
I want to do the quote real quick.
Yes.
Dr. Martin Luther King says, "We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice."
Thank you very much. It is Sunday afternoon and I do have a glass of red wine in my hand. So yeah, I did forget that quote, but it's a fantastic quote. And I didn't want to do that name of a show where something was so obvious, like Flight School, Flight Academy. And so we called it The Arc. And I just thought it was a bit more interesting. Again, make people think about, go and look at what that title means, read that quote, and again, spark something else within something. And that's what it's about sparking within them.
Yeah.
But to talk about pitching, so this, even just talking about it to you now, like the idea is so rewarding just thinking that we can possibly do this, right? So my first initial pitch deck was just me saying, hey, who wants to do it? There's no pitch deck, it was me talking. And people were like, oh, that sounds really, as soon as you mention planes, it sounds kind of sexy and fun, right? So that gets people's attention. Yeah. And then you say you're going to help kids, and that gets people's attention. And then you talk about the injustice with the African American and female community, which is obviously, let's not beat around the bush, there's a lot of box ticking going on. There's a lot of people's voices trying to get heard right now. Whatever angle you're coming at it from, that is something that's very relevant in our time right now. The TV companies, I think, want to be seen to be doing the right thing, so they tick boxes, but there is an injustice for people who are trying to come forward. So the whole thing, just talking about it, was kind of appealing in itself. So that got me in the door initially. As soon as I got in the door with certain people, which I got representation of CA behind the idea, I realised, oh my goodness, this has got legs.
Yes.
Get your professional head on. This isn't just having a pint and talking about something you want to make. This is an actual reality. And it garnered attention so quickly that it was like, I got together with a producer friend, I was like, right, we've got to put together a pitch deck. And we literally did a written pitch deck, and it was kind of rough and fun, all different fonts. We said, here, look at this. Do you think this is a great idea? Do you think this is a good idea to go the road to go down to the agents? And they were like, they came back to studios and they're like, okay, I've got 4 people interested. I've already sent it out. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? You said that was, you were just writing something out.
That's a dream.
So it was a dream, yeah. And so I don't want to name anybody's names in particular in case they drop off, and then I've sort of named them. But there was a lot of interest, and a lot of big companies were interested. They're still interested. So then we realised that, like, all right, we bring our proper pitch deck down. So then we went to somebody who puts these things together, and they do research and pictures and make it look. And this was a conversation we had about pitching. You're not pitching to artistic people. You're not pitching to any people who even make television. Mm-hmm. You're pitching to accountants or Silicon Valley people who are looking at figures and numbers and flow charts.
Yeah.
Now, if you go in there and say, I've got this most original idea, it's about a tartan cow who flies through the night and it fires laser beams out its horns. No, I'm not going to make that.
Yeah. What are the numbers on a tartan cow?
What's the numbers? Show me the numbers on that.
Yeah.
Unless Comedy Central's
what
listening,
shows
in which case
what shows it
Adam
related to?
has a pitch.
What other tartan cow shows was there? Laser beams and all. And now it could be the best, right? It could have been written by Ibsen. It could have been, it could have been all these different things. It doesn't matter. They've never heard of it before. What were we talking about earlier? The IP.
We were, yeah.
So they want in. So everything that's getting made now has to have an instant IP.
Yeah.
Which is viewing numbers attached to it.
Which every writer is dealing with right now in Hollywood. Like,
so
your idea has to be
book,
something else first. Yeah.
Remake of a comic. A regurgitation of an old idea, which is a shame because there's the original. I feel the narrative of original ideas is getting lost for the purpose of just getting stuff out there to recreate stuff, to recast it in different formats, and as you say, have this IP address, this IP, so it's constantly got an audience, and what it's doing is it's getting rid of the creative art of what we do. And so when you're pitching to, even if you have come up with the original idea about a tartan cow who flies through space and shoots laser beams out its horns, you've got to make them think this is the show that they want, or it's a show that they've seen. So you're like, oh, Clifford the Big Red Dog? Yeah, so it's not like that, but... Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
And you've kind of almost got to take them on a road that they feel comfortable with, and have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed in terms of what the show is, but don't create the show. Make them feel like they've created the show in their own head.
So come in, have it be open-ended.
I don't even know if that's the term.
You almost have to kind of Jedi mind trick them into authorship.
That's exactly it. That's a perfect way of putting it. That's a perfect way of putting it. Like, here's the bullet points of a show. Mm-hmm. What would you do with those bullet points?
And then they you've
given them enough bullet points that they come up with your show.
Yeah.
That's it.
When did you realize that that's what you were actually doing? After you got representation and after they took it out and then you went in and met with some of these people?
As soon as I met with a producer and he says, go and take a look at this TV show. And it was Last Chance U. Mm-hmm. And I went and looked at Last Chance U and I went... And then to be fair to him, I was still a little bit all over the place about what the format was. So when I looked at Last Chance U, I went, that's a show. And then from there, once I had the show, then I could tweak it and make it slightly different. Mm-hmm. But it was easier to start with a base of something I knew and tweak it into something different than it was to... And it's not the same show, but what's the belief of, is it a Buddhist belief? There's only 7 ideas in the world or some...
Yeah, there's only 7 original story ideas.
Yeah. And so...
I think Lucas or Spielberg said that, or someone.
I think Spielberg quoted something like, I think it's Nietzsche actually originally came up with the original concept of there's only 7 concepts within the world.
That makes sense.
So, but yeah, it's been employed by the film world. Excuse me. But yeah, find your show, find something as similar to it as possible you possibly can. Use that as a reference tool, but show them how it can be different. That sounds so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
Look, the concept of pitching is a little bizarre, and this industry is bizarre. So
yeah.
But yours is indicative of when someone asks anyone, like if somebody comes up to me and asks me, how did I get my first manager? Well, my story is unique among all the stories because all the stories happen a different way. It's not one way to do something. So you having your pitch you got people interested in it before you did your pitch deck. You got a producer on board and you got a CAA on board, and then you did the pitch deck.
And then I made the pitch deck.
And then you shopped that around. So you already had like
so the concept.
fire
So that's
under
when
you.
I knew the concept was a great concept from the start, from the get off.
Yeah.
So I knew I had, like, I know I've had a great idea. Like, the reason I got into the aviation world is because I saw a massive gap in the market. I saw a demand for pilots, and I saw initially, let's be honest about it, a way to make money, which is why I started a business. Mm-hmm. And then I reminded myself why I was in that business is because I was pissed off about injustice about certain pilots and certain people, and the way the pilots were getting treated. And I was like, okay, let's go back to that. Well, why don't we start a charity program? That'd be great. We're doing this. And then it evolved itself in my own head. So all it took was somebody's like, make a show about it. That's all it took for somebody to say. And I was like, yeah, of course.
Sometimes, yeah, that's the magic.
It was a great idea, and because that's from the very essence of me even stepping in a plane. It was a great idea.
I think my personal philosophy is when you have an idea, you don't know, do I run with it? Do I put it in the back burner? The first person you ask and you pitch that idea to, if it's a yes from them or a no from them, dictates whether or not you run with it. So you have to be very, you have to be very careful who you pitch that idea to, because if it's a no, you could have had the best idea ever, but because you didn't have the support, you put that on the back burner. And if any of our audiences out there have had a good idea and they pitched it to someone and they said no, well, maybe pick that idea back up.
So I heard two contradictory things in there.
Okay.
You said the first person you pitch to, if it's yes or no, if it's a yes, you run with it.
Yeah.
And then at the end there, maybe I tuned out for a second. Were you saying like if you got a no, but you like that idea, you should then pick it back up?
Yeah. Pick
it
back up.
So don't necessarily let someone dictate your connection to an idea, but audience test, maybe like an aggregate audience testing. Like if 3 people all say no, maybe then drop it. Because if the first person says no and you drop it.
Well, there's a thing in writing. However, there's a thing in writing they say, don't talk about it, write it. And I think that's it. Now you're talking about me getting these people involved and then realizing I had to get something down on paper.
Yes.
I could have talked about it forever and never done a thing. And I could have been pitching it wrong the whole time. But at least as soon as I knew there was a bit of interest, it was like, right, get stuff down on paper. I don't know if you've ever done therapy, but when you do therapy, the first thing a therapist gets you to do is write. Because writing is our clearest conscience. It's the clearest point of our conscience. It's where we take all the noise in our head and we funnel it into a single thing, and that's a word. Mm-hmm. So by talking about your project all the time and pitching all the time, pitching isn't a great thing. I think this is why the pitch deck works really well, and spending a bit of money on your pitch deck and getting it look nice and getting those good, and not just pictures pulling off the internet. Get into these Getty picture banks and all these things and put together what feels like a bloody holiday brochure. It should feel like I want to go there. And if you make that and have that precede you, you don't have to pitch. All you're going in at that point to do is to talk about how many episodes are we doing, what's your budget, because that was my next meeting with your man Vincent. It was like, he's like, this speaks for itself. He's like, I read that, I saw that line when you pull back on the yoke and you see the person's face. He's like, I was there. I saw it, I felt it. He's like, this is a great idea. Let's just make it.
Yeah, Vincent is a producer that I hooked Adam up with, who does documentaries for Life is My Movie, who's doing Nathan and I's documentary.
Yeah, great
and then
guy.
your documentary. Yeah. He is a great guy. But exactly what you said. You go, you have the precursor to the meeting, which is your pitch deck. So put some money into it, put a lot of time, put a lot of love.
And a lot of money for a real good pitch deck.
Yeah.
It's like $500 is a lot of money.
It is
for a pitch deck.
I've spent that amount of money on a pitch deck for Kosuke.
I've spent that money on a round of drinks in this town. Let's be honest with it, right?
Yeah.
You got dumped with the bill and everybody left and you're like, oh shit, I'll just get it tonight. Like, 500?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's if you're going to spend money anywhere, people talk about doing sizzle reels and and doing this and getting as many doors as you can and make business. No. Your pitch deck will speak for itself if the idea is solid. If you're handing over something and go, I see that and I want to go on holiday there, like we just said.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a brochure.
That's so true. You do a pitch deck, and then when you go in, you're pitching you. You're not pitching the project.
They want to see how nice you are.
Yes.
When you're going in, once they've picked up on the pitch deck, you're 70% there. Now they're interviewing you to see if there's somebody they want to spend the next year of their life with.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the project.
Yeah. Angel, I saw you had a question.
No, I was just going to reiterate that it's you were talking about your project, which ran counter to the advice you heard. Don't talk about it, write it, right?
Yes.
But I think this goes back to what Stephen Horniak was saying. We had a guy on who does audience testing. So they take a movie, and then before it shows to the general audience, they screen it with a selected audience, and they interview them, and they adjust the movie if it's necessary. So with Get Out, the Jordan Peele movie, the ending was different from what we all saw, and that was changed because of the audience testing. The ending was he and the two guys, the boyfriend and girlfriend, are fighting in the driveway. The cop car pulls up. She starts screaming, "Help, help, he's beating me up, he's killed my whole family." And in the original ending, the cop who pulled them over on the way into town gets out. And our homeboy goes to jail.
Right.
He loses. The audience hated that ending.
Because they were rooting for him?
Hated that ending. They're like, he needs a win.
Funny.
So they went and told Jordan Peele, "Hey, the audience loved your movie, hated the ending." Jordan Peele then thought about it, went back and rewrote the ending that we all know, where like his homie gets out of the cop car. Right?
Right, yeah.
So he says this is where audience testing can save a movie, or, you know, if you don't do it, it can break your movie. They now have started to do it with scripts. So they take the script in before they even shoot the movie and perform it, stage table read.
Stage readings?
With an audience.
Wow.
And they test it, and then they interview the audience.
It's not a bad idea.
So, but what you're doing with your pitch is basically you're audience testing it with audiences of one, a friend at lunch, a producer friend, this, that, and the other person, and they're responding to it and going, "Hey, that's got legs." That's your first audience. And so then by the time you're ready to put a pitch deck together, you've had so many positive responses. You've either tailored it to make it better, or you've seen that it has legs, like you've talked about. I
always, as an actor, or a filmmaker, or a television maker, and all the projects I've worked on over the years, I'm always like, I've tried to do that thing where I've done a project, we filmed 5 scenes, and I'm super excited about it, and I love the dailies, and I go to my mother-in-law, and I go, "Oh, look at that, it looks amazing." She's just like, I don't get it. There's no point showing somebody something half-finished. So there's no point pitching to a professional with a half-finished idea. And just to go back on what you said, pitch to your friends with a half-finished idea, yeah, because they'll guide you through it, and then you come back to your friends the next time you're having a coffee or a tea or a glass, and go, "Here, what about I do this with it?" And they'll give you ideas, and and another thing is, don't be offended by ideas. Listen to them. Don't say, "Oh, that's a lot of rubbish." Don't get advice about it.
Sure, yeah.
Take it, let it go. But yeah, shape it, because you do only get, and that's why I was saying the pitch deck. That's when I realized, when I knew I had traction. I was like, shit, I got traction here, and I'd only had a conversation, and I went and I did the pitch deck.
The idea is fire, Adam.
So that's it. So the pitch deck is your thing. That's it. That's the calling card now. Right now, as far as I've noticed, that's it. I did it before. So I made a TV series, or 4 TV series, and I got a lot. It was called Lincoln Avenue.
We watched it, yeah.
And I got a lot of traction with that, and Paramount were interested. There's a lot of people interested.
And you wrote it, and
I wrote it,
starred
in it, directed it,
and
produced it, yeah. And it was about 3 guys. We called it the other side of LA, the non-glossy side of LA. Yeah. It was about 3 guys just living in LA, living their lives with their families, trying to get through things. Unfortunately, the temperature or the mood for what people want to see in 3 white guys living in suburbia wasn't what people want to watch right now. And so the Oscars So White happened, Me Too movement happened, and so I pushed it off the scale of what people were wanting to make, and I had a bit of legs before that. But that time, pitching that, I actually went out and I made pilot episodes. So I made trailer episodes for each episode. I did 6 of them, and I did what you'd see, like what was going to be the advertisement that week running on television for each one, and that got me in the door before. And that was because there was a time you used to do a pitch sheet. It was a 1 piece,
like a 1 sheet, yeah.
A 1 sheet. That was enough. Then there was a script.
Yeah.
You had to send a script. Then they didn't want to read scripts, so they were reading too many scripts.
Yep.
So then it was send us in a sizzle reel.
Yep.
Then it's like, oh, why don't you shoot an episode and put it out? And so this, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it constantly changes
what they want, what they want, what gets you in the door. Yeah.
And look at even what we're doing with auditions right now. Is time you had to be in the room and you had to work the room, and now it's like, oh, your reel's got to be amazing because that's what's preceding you, and make sure you got a professional setup with the microphone. Like we're sitting here right now, and we're sitting here in your house with professional equipment. That's just the way it is now. When it comes to pitching, I think, and this is only what I've been going through recently, is the pitch deck has been the golden ticket for me. I can chat up a storm. I can chat to anybody about anything.
You're great at it, yeah.
So that comes secondary.
Yeah.
That comes secondary.
I mean, these are good rules. Like, have a solid pitch deck, put some money into it, put the time into it, make sure that it sings, and then be solid in the room.
Test your idea with non-professionals.
Oh,
when
yeah,
you say
test your idea
professionals,
with
right? You're
friends.
talking about the accountants and decision makers who you would be in the room pitching to. When you say don't pitch an unfinished idea to professionals.
Yeah.
Like, you have friends in the industry who are
basically-
technically professionals, but the different people who you'd be sitting across from, then they are the bean counters.
My friends aren't going to buy it off me. And if they
Right.
think it's a good idea, they might put me in touch. Here's the thing about friends in the business. Is,
Sorry, I have a feeling I know where this is going to go.
well, friends in the business, that thing. You could be Tom Cruise. I bet you Tom Cruise's friends go, oh, God, there's Tom again acting his heart out. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you can't impress your friends.
Yeah.
And your friends have always got, no, I know how it should end. Every time. So no matter how professional, I've got friends in the business from the upper echelons, in front of the camera, behind the camera, to the lower, and it's like they're not going to buy it off me.
Yeah.
If my neighbour came and pitched the exact same idea to them, they'd probably buy it off him. You know, that's just the way it works. And so friends in business is, you got to take everything with a pinch of salt there. But by all means, use them and use that arena to get your idea solid. Don't use it for ideas. Use it to get your idea solid. If they're like, I don't understand that bit, then you're obviously not explaining it right. So get your idea solid.
Gotcha.
This is during the height of COVID, I would have these table reads for scripts that I had written because we weren't doing anything and everybody was using Zoom anyway. So I table read like 5 feature films. And afterwards, we would always have a discussion because I wanted notes on my script. And if everybody had the same note, I'd pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So it is.
You're really good about like opening things up for receiving notes after.
I try.
Stuff, yeah.
So it is a matter of, yes, you will have a professional pitch, but like what the two of you are saying, pitch to your friends because there are some gold nuggets there too.
Yeah. And it's like.
And I'm constantly pitching to Angel.
Yeah.
I did it today.
You did. And I heard a great interview. Matt Damon was talking about Ben Affleck very early on in their career. And Matt Damon said, at some point, Ben said to me, hey, look, don't judge me on all my bad ideas. You hear this quote? Judge me on my best ideas.
Right, yeah.
And they were talking about in the guise of like brainstorming and ideating and coming up and iterating that you need to have free reign to get all your ideas out and not be judged on them because otherwise it's going to stop the flow and then the good ideas don't come out.
That's great.
So you are constantly pitching to me.
Yeah.
So,
and that's great. And I think, look, it's like everybody's a photographer now because you can take 1 million pictures with your camera and get one good picture out of it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I guess it's the same for ideas. Lightning only strikes every now and again. You can't just be like, another great idea, another great idea, another great idea. But you don't want to be going in the room with the baggage of the bad ideas.
No.
And so get it out. But when something is real and it's there and people are starting to raise eyebrows and when other people start having ideas on it, it's usually a good sign when it's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Leah always says as soon as they start asking questions or like offering ideas, then you know you have
this is
them.
how it should. This is what you should do.
You have them.
And you let them pitch on your idea. And you yes and. I think a lot of good pitching is the same rules as improv, right?
Big eyes and lots of like wacky movement.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
I don't know improv enough. I just made that up. Sorry to all the improv people out there who are listening.
There's a lot of conversation that's going to go down in the pitching room so my producing partner, David, he's always like, stop talking. After we come off the meeting, like when we do the breakdown at the end, he's like, yeah, you need to stop talking so much. And it's like, because we've got a tendency to go off topic and you want to tell them how you got to that idea, so you want to tell them the process and the work. Yeah. And you're actually just bogging them down with a lot of bullshit. And that's where the pitch deck, again, has to be succinct as well. Yeah. You can have paragraph one, it's bullet points. And if they pick on the bullet point and want to talk about the bullet point, talk about it enough and get the idea across, but don't go into how you got there and how your mum was a basketball player and that's why you decided to become a basketball player. And
that's the exhilarating thing to a creative is how I got to this point. But what I've realized similarly is that they don't care. That bogs them down. I'm like, the coolest thing is the breadcrumb road I traveled to get to what I'm presenting to you. They do not care.
They don't care.
That stops their joy and their discovery of the process, even though it is magical.
It has to be, by the time you're sitting in front of somebody who's going to write a check, it has to be so...
And you're going to have to join us next episode to find out what Adam thinks your pitch needs to be by the time you're in front of somebody who has the power to write a check and bring your idea to life. For both Leah and myself, thanks for listening. Cheers from Hollywood. If you're on the fence about subscribing, know that a portion of all subscription fees
go toward the nonprofit Young Storytellers, raising voices one story at a time. We here at Pitch support and stand in solidarity with the members of the WGA and everyone supporting their current fight for fair compensation and their rightful place in the future of film, television, and streaming content production. Head over to WGA.org to find out more and how you can support as well.